This madman pours an entire bottle of liquor over his own head, and, faking a drunken stagger, charges straight toward the gate of the Russian embassy. Two burly security guards rush out immediately and slam him to the ground right there. And right at that moment, the real target, Victor, arrives with this whole scheme lying in wait behind him. This stranger pulls his car in tight behind Victor's, and in a blaze of fury, dials 911 and screams at the police. The car roars down the road like something possessed. Moments later, traffic police force Victor's bodyguard's car off to the side. Victor, sitting inside, is left utterly stunned. Why would the police stop his own bodyguard? But the next instant, his Mercedes is jammed hard in the middle of the road and won't budge. The stranger calmly pulls out a can of gasoline and douses the car. Then, with cold swagger, he flicks out a lighter and tosses it. Instantly the Benz erupts into flames. He whips out his gun, yanks the car door open, and without a moment's hesitation fires 2 shots, ending the driver right there. He climbs in, grabs Victor by the collar, and demands to know who killed his wife. When Victor stays silent and tries to squirm away, the stranger shows no mercy. He puts a bullet straight through his leg. But this old man proves stubborn. Even after all that punishment, he refuses to talk. So the stranger puts another bullet in his chest, and this time the pain is too much. Victor breaks like a parrot and spills the whole truth. By then, police have the place surrounded on every side. The man throws the door open and raises his hands, surrendering without a fight. His name is John, a hardened member of the Navy SEALs. Months earlier, he'd led his team on a high-stakes mission into Syria. Under CIA orders, they were sent to rescue an agent held by the Syrian government. They blast through the main gate, cut down the guards in a storm of gunfire, find the target's room, kick it open and storm inside. Once things seem secure, John checks the man's identity and freezes. This isn't a Syrian prisoner at all. He's a retired Russian soldier. When John presses him, the man admits he's an ex-Russian officer. Furious, John snaps, "You told us Syrian army, not Russian." The man shrugs coldly, "I don't see any Russians here." Disgusted by his commander's evasiveness, John lets the argument drop. But just as they turn to leave, a backup squad of enemies detonates the whole area. Lucky for John, he's built like a tank and walks away unscathed, but his captain, Karen, is trapped. Without thinking twice, John hurls a flashbang and dives down to reach her. He grabs his weapon and starts firing blind. Mid-firefight, it hits him. This isn't the safe house they'd been briefed on at all. It's actually a Russian military arms depot. He guns down 2 more attackers from behind, and once the area's clear, starts hunting for a way out. Back on the plane, furious, John confronts his commanding officer about the false intel, but gets no answer. Instead, the order comes down to level the entire base. Everyone assumes the matter is closed. But no one could have imagined the nightmare this team was about to walk into. 3 months after that brutal mission, John, the man who'd once staked the world against his enemies, just wanted a quiet, ordinary life. With his pregnant wife, he was counting down the days until their daughter arrived. The house overflowed with joy, tiny toys scattered everywhere. For John, this felt like the real beginning of something new. Looking at his wife, he thought of trading his weapons for his daughter's tiny hands one day. They were savoring every moment, and everything felt perfect. Then, one by one, horror began closing in on his old teammates. Some were run down by cars right outside their homes. Others were gunned down in the middle of the street. That night John came home from work as usual. His wife's due date was near. Not wanting to disturb her sleep, he decided to bunk in the basement instead. At midnight, 2 killers slipped into the house, cutting the lights the moment they stepped in. John was on the sofa listening to music when his computer suddenly died. He went to check and realized the entire house had gone dark, then heard footsteps upstairs. Taking no chances, he grabbed his gun and crept up. At that same moment, one killer had already reached the bedroom and sprayed bullets across the bed, only to accidentally shoot his own partner lying there. John seized the moment, threw the door open, shot the man in the doorway and pressed on upstairs. There he came face to face with the last killer. A brutal struggle broke out, both men took hits and hit the floor. A flashlight beam caught the killer's face, forcing him to rip off his night vision goggles. He raised his gun to finish John off, but fate intervened. His weapon was empty. Badly wounded, he fled into the night. Bleeding heavily, John dragged himself toward the bed, every part of him screaming in agony. His only hope was that his wife and unborn child were safe. But the moment he reached her side, the floor beneath him seemed to give way. His wife's breath had already stopped. Staring at her still face and the blood soaking everything, John's mind went completely blank. The soldier who'd once smiled through the world's deadliest missions now lay broken on his own bedroom floor, utterly helpless. He wanted to hold her one last time, but there was no life left to hold. He wanted to scream but no sound would come, and he collapsed into unconsciousness from the pain. Soon after, John was rushed to the hospital. The CIA called an emergency meeting over the incident, and Ritter, present in the room, broke down in tears, convinced the team must have taken some reckless risk that brought the enemy to John's door. But Karen refused to believe her team capable of such a mistake. She confronted Ritter angrily, demanding he stop the nonsense. He only promised to get to the bottom of it. Days later, once John recovered, he told Karen everything, including the killer who'd escaped. Given the case's high profile, the investigation moved fast. Ritter soon discovered the SEAL team had unknowingly killed the son of the director of Russia's Security Bureau during that mission, and revenge was all but certain. But while reviewing the case files, Karen noticed something odd. Only 3 bodies were logged and the 4th killer who'd fled had no name, no record at all. When she pushed the issue, Ritter dodged the question, insisting he wanted the matter buried quietly before it turned into an international incident. The secretary made it clear too, without hard evidence, nothing could be done. So Karen secretly passed the killer's details to John. The trail led to a forged passport made by a retired Russian security officer named Victor, currently living it up at the Russian embassy in Washington. He'd know exactly who these men really were. Under cover of darkness, John returned to his own silent house. The place that once echoed with laughter now felt like an abandoned graveyard. He walked slowly past the walls still stained with his wife's blood. In that suffocating silence, he could almost hear her laugh again, and the cries of the child he'd never meet. Standing in that empty room, John swore he was done trusting the police or the law. He would deliver justice to his wife and child with his own hands, and hunt down every killer himself. And that's where the real nightmare begins. After forcing Victor to give up the 4th killer's name, John doesn't hesitate, he shoots him dead on the spot. For this, John is locked away for life in a maximum security black site. It only confirms his suspicion: someone powerful wants him silenced. He tells Karen plainly to relay a message to the secretary: he has valuable intelligence, but only if they get him out now or he'll be dead by tomorrow. That same day, John spots something dark seeping through and quickly wraps a towel around his hand, jamming the drain with his clothes. Then he waits, ready for the guards to come. Sure enough, several show up, and John takes them down one by one, fighting like they'd cornered a lion. Once they're all on the ground, he locks up a guard and forces the warden to seal the main gate. Minutes later, a U.S. Marshal arrives with a phone in hand. On the other end is the secretary himself. He tells John he can walk free, but only if he keeps his mouth shut. They take him to a hidden CIA facility packed with senior officers. When John names the fugitive, the room goes still. According to official records, that man had been dead for years. Ritter explains he was once a top Russian intelligence operative who built an entire network of sleeper agents, which got him formally banned from the country. If he's still alive, he's a serious threat. The secretary orders a new team assembled to finish him for good. John steps up and says if the man is truly this dangerous, they'll need someone like him on the team. After a pause, the secretary agrees. The team boards an unregistered aircraft and heads for the Barents Sea, planning a covert insertion. But just as they prepare to jump, a Russian fighter jet intercepts them with a warning. The pilot tries to bluff his way out, but the Russians aren't buying it, and without hesitation they launch a missile straight at the plane. The missile connects and the aircraft goes down into the sea. Water floods the cabin fast, forcing the team to grab their gear and swim for it. Eventually, a speedboat gets them to the Russian capital. Strangely, the crash works in their favor. Both nations now believe the team is dead, which should make the mission easier. But something nags at John: why wasn't the fugitive on that flight with them? While Ritter is celebrating the good news, John suddenly shows up with his men. His icy threats rattle Ritter into confessing he genuinely believed the whole team was lost, which is why he deployed a second, more advanced unit. John lets it go for now, and that night the team storms the target building with heavy weapons. But once inside, John shuts and bars the iron gate himself. He wants this kill with his bare hands. Stepping further in, he finds his bodyguard already dead, and the killer waiting calmly for him. The man admits without flinching that he killed John's wife purely on orders from above, and funnier still, the same person who gave that order sent John here too. He'd always posed as a Russian spy, but in truth he answered to a powerful American official. "We gave our lives for something greater," the killer says. John demands to know what cause could possibly be worth this. The killer only smiles. "America, John. We just have to die here." Then he reaches for a detonator and the bomb goes off. With all the evidence destroyed, the team has no choice but to retreat. As they pull back, one of their men takes a sniper's bullet from an unseen position, and no one dares move while the shots keep coming. John thinks fast, pinpoints the shooter's location, slides across, grabs a pane of glass, and shouts a warning to buy time for their wounded comrade. Then a second sniper appears. Once his position is found, John and Karen open fire together, drawing him off just long enough to get their injured man to safety. They have no idea death is still waiting outside. To escape alive, they'll have to take out yet another sniper across the courtyard. Meanwhile, Russian police flood the scene, only for the responding officers to be gunned down the instant they step out of their cars. And here's the twist. The murder of those officers gets pinned squarely on John's team. Now, no matter what they do, proving their innocence is nearly impossible. Everything he'd sacrificed, his life, his happiness, his family, had all just been a tool for people sitting comfortably in their offices, using him and his team like pieces on a board. The soldier who'd always been willing to take a bullet for his country now felt utterly betrayed. He understood the whole ugly scheme at last. From the very beginning, this had been engineered to spark a war between two nations. Now they had to get out alive and expose whoever was really pulling the strings. Karen quickly devises an escape plan. First priority, take out the sniper in the gallery. The team lays down heavy covering fire from the front while John blasts through a wall into the next room to close in on the shooter. He keeps firing to hold the enemy's attention while Karen circles around for the flank, but her gun jams at the worst possible moment. Seeing the opening, the sniper turns to attack her instead. John tries to line up a shot on the other threat but can't get a clean angle, so he abandons it and rushes to help Karen, gunning the killer down where he stands. Just as he reaches for the fallen weapon, Karen finishes the job with her knife. They haul their wounded up to the next floor, but by now Russian police have them completely surrounded. John decides to draw fire by heading to the rooftop. With his wife already gone, even survival means a lifetime behind bars, so he lobs a grenade at the police vehicles, firing carefully around civilians to pull all the attention onto himself. Karen uses the chaos to slip away down a narrow street with the wounded. Russian soldiers reach the top floor just as John, down to his last few rounds, tries to line up one more attack, but the incoming fire is too heavy to get a shot off. Left with no choice, he leaps straight out the window. His gear bag falls separately, and a soldier closes in. John disarms him, shoots him, and finishes him off with his bare hands. Grabbing his explosives bag, he sprints for cover, uses fallen bodies as a shield, and hurls the bag into the middle of the pursuing group. After the blast, John strips a dead man's clothes for a disguise and slips away, barely conscious, until he finally reunites with his team. The next day, with Ritter's help, they make their escape. To finally expose the true mastermind, Ritter suggests John fake his own death. It's the only way to draw the real player out into the open. John tracks down the secretary and lays out everything that happened in Russia, but the secretary's expression doesn't so much as flicker. In that instant, John understands, the mastermind behind it all has been this secretary the entire time. Without wasting another second, he chokes the man unconscious and drags him into a car. When the secretary comes to, John threatens his family until he confesses everything. It turns out this entire nightmare was engineered by corrupt officials at the highest levels, who needed nothing more than an excuse to ignite a war. When John's team had accidentally killed the Russian officer's son during that first mission, it handed those men exactly the opportunity they wanted. The secretary had ordered the killers sent after every member of that team and made sure the blame landed squarely on Russia. Hearing the full scope of the conspiracy, John's blood boils. He wrenches the wheel around, drives the car straight toward the lake, and sends it plunging into the water. The secretary drowns inside and John makes it out alive. And that's where this story ends, without remorse. If you liked the story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.